Well, I recently came this close to trading my Indian Roadmaster for another motorcycle. And I came this close to trading it for another brand. Let me give you a quick walk around of my Indian Roadmaster and I'll tell you why I considered trading my motorcycle. Okay, here's my story. First of all, let me say I love all kinds of motorcycles. I love all kinds of brands of motorcycles. I'm certainly not a brand snob, but I do have two favorite brands. My two favorite brands are very iconic. They both have an interesting history, and they're both American made, so that kind of gives away what the two brands are. My two favorite brands are Harley Davidson and Indian. Now, I started riding motorcycles when I was 10 years old, and amazingly that was over 50 years ago. And even at 10 years old, I was in love with Harley Davidson. I blame that on Evel Knievel and a TV show called Then Came Bronson, and then a little later on a cartoon called Devlin. And so I've always loved Harley Davidsons. I fell in love with Indian in the year 2000. I was in Jefferson, Texas. There was a little Indian dealership there selling what we call Gilroy, California Indians. And I remember looking at that Indian thinking, man, that is a gorgeous bike. One day I want to own an Indian motorcycle. Well, it was 17 years later before I bought my first Indian. I had a Harley Road Glide I had owned for several years that I really liked, but I found this gorgeous Indian cheap vintage. It was Indian red and ivory cream with the tan leather saddlebags and seat. It was gorgeous. Most beautiful motorcycle I've ever owned. And so I purchased the Indian. And so in 2017 I had the best of both worlds. I would have Harley days, I would have Indian days. But I tell you, more than 90% of the time I was riding the Indian. So I decided to sell the Harley. I thought I can't ride two bikes at once. I really don't need two bikes taking up space in the garage. So I sold my Harley and I just had the Indian. Well, as some time passed, I got to wanting a full touring bike again, especially with navigation and bells and whistles. And so one day I was down at the local Harley dealership, which for me, the local Harley dealership is Cowboy Harley Davidson in Beaumont, Texas. I can't tell you enough good things about Cowboy Harley Davidson. I have purchased 4 brand new motorcycles there over the last 20 years. It's an incredible dealership, incredible customer service. The sales staff is great. They take care of you after the sale. I'm talking service department, parts, apparel, accessories. I mean, it's just a really good, solid dealership. So I was in there one day and of course they had a touring bike with navigation, and out of curiosity I asked them, okay, what would you give me trade-in? My Indian, and how many dollars for that touring Harley? And they made me a really good deal. They actually gave me more for that Indian vintage than I paid for it. So I purchased the Harley, and I purchased it the same day that I made the deal. Usually I'll tell a salesman that even if we come to a really good deal, I have to sleep on it. And I tell them, you know, I'm going to wait till the next day to pull the trigger, and I might back out after I have had time to think about it. But that day I went ahead and pulled the trigger on the day I made the deal. Well, the next morning I'm thinking, oh no, what have I done? I'm going to miss my Indian. And I did. I've never missed a motorcycle like I missed my first Indian motorcycle, that red and ivory cream Indian cheap vintage. And so, oh man, I'm gonna miss that bike, and I did. So that was early 2019, late 2019, I traded that Harley in on my Indian Roadmaster and got a really good deal on that as well. I bought it at the Indian dealership in Alexandria. Gosh, dog, truck was taking the whole road. So I purchased it in Alexandria, Louisiana, and overall this is my favorite motorcycle. I think I've owned 19 motorcycles in 51 years of riding. Of course, those first few I just, you know, outgrew them, and then, you know, I went to naked street bikes, to V-twin cruisers, to big heavy touring bikes. So out of all the motorcycles, this is my favorite based on all the reasons you would buy a motorcycle. Looks, comfort, performance, features, dependability. I've owned this bike for 3.5 years. I have 54,000 miles on it, complete trouble-free. I've ridden in 8 different states. I really like my Indian, so why would I consider trading it? Well, I still get Harley fever. As I said, I like Harley and Indians. And right now, I can't justify in my mind having 2 motorcycles for multiple reasons. So I was at the Harley dealership recently. I handed my salesman my key fob and I said, you know, my bike and how many dollars for a new Harley touring bike? And they offered me a really good deal. I mean, it's a great dealership here in Beaumont, Texas. And so they offered me a really good deal, and as it turned out, I didn't have time to finish up the deal. I was going to put some additional cash along with my trade-in, and I didn't have time right then to go to the bank. I had to go to a meeting at church, and I told him, I said, by the time my meeting is over, you'll probably be closed for the day. I'll most likely have to come back in the morning. Well, that worked out to my benefit. It gave me a night to sleep on it and think about it. Well, even on the way home that day, I thought, you know, I would be giving up some features on my Indian that you can't get on the Harley. I'd be giving up the electric windshield. I would be giving up this Fox air shock, this mono shock. The Indian has an incredible suspension, and I may ride an 800-mile round trip for lunch. We did that not long ago. We rode up to Arkansas, ate lunch, rode back. I think I spent 16 hours in the saddle, rode 800 miles in one day, and I want to do that in comfort. So I thought, I mean, there'll be so many things I'll be giving up. I've had great adventures on this motorcycle. I've got the, you know, 54,000 miles on it so far. I think I could get way more miles out of it than I've got so far. And really, at some point, if I was going to buy a Harley, I'd really like to keep my Indian and buy a Harley as the second bike. But just right now, I don't think that would fit my budget. So I decided to not make the trade. I contacted my salesman. Of course, he was very gracious. And, you know, they know how I am, that it, you know, when I do bike, and I have bought 4 there, that sometimes it takes me time to pull the trigger. And so, you know, of course, he urged me to come in and talk to their folks, because I did qualify for the low interest rate and all those good things. And it was very tempting. Even later that day, I thought more about pulling the trigger, but I feel good about my decision right now to stay with the Indian brand. I've had a really good experience with this motorcycle. I've had fun trying to promote the Indian brand, because that, you know, if the Indian brand does well, that's good for me as a customer. This last year, I organized an Indian motorcycle event on Indian tribal land at Livingston, Texas. It was a huge success. We plan on making that our 2nd annual event in March of this coming year. We'll do it the 2nd Saturday in March. That's at the Alabama Coshada Indian Reservation, and don't let the name deceive you, it is in Texas. Just the original tribes. The original tribe came from Alabama. So we had a great time last year with that event, and we're going to do that again this year. I'm active in the Indian Motorcycle Riders Group here in Southeast Texas. My family and I are about to move to North Carolina, and I plan on becoming active in the Indian Motorcycle Riders Group up there in North Carolina. Of course, I've remained active in the local Harley Owners Group here in Southeast Texas, and I hope to be able maybe to do some riding with the Hog chapter up there as well. But again, I came this close to trading my bike, but I'm feel good about the decision I made. But stay tuned to the channel. You know, one day I may be posting a video where I bought a Harley or a Gold Wing. Yes, I even like Gold Wings. Of course, my wife will tell you that the Indian Roadmaster has the mystique of a Harley Davidson with the comfort of a gold wing, and the Comfort is pretty doggone close to a gold wing. I think there's only one area maybe the gold wing would outshine the Indian Roadmaster, but my Indian Roadmaster, I've got the V-twin rumble and the mystique and the history and all those things that the Honda doesn't quite have. So again, stay tuned to the channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon. All those things help me grow the channel. I really enjoy doing this YouTube channel. I hope it's, it's a benefit for bikers in general, especially those who ride the Indian brand. And remember, if you like to ride as much as you can, because one day we're all going to be too old to ride. Yeah, I guess that kind of shows my age a little bit, because one day I'll age out of riding, and I'm not looking forward to that day. I'm going to ride as long as I can. I'm going to stay on two wheels as long as I can. Now eventually, of course, I may end up on a trike. And Indian, if you're listening, you need to make a trike. I know there are aftermarket companies, kits to make a Indian into a trike, but I would like to see a factory Indian trike. I mean, Harley's been making trikes in the factory for a very long time, and they're outstanding motorcycles. So hey, Indian, you need to catch up there. So again, like, subscribe, do all those things, and continue to watch. Thank you for tuning in.